Hi everyone, welcome. I'm glad you're here. In this lesson we are going to continue looking at stem changing verbs in Spanish, and in particular the pattern of the E changing to an IE. So we had a lesson already with this pattern, so this is the next verb, the next important verb that we're going to look at, and it's the verb entender. Entender. Entender means to understand. So when we conjugate this verb, the E here sometimes is going to change to an IE in some of the forms, but not all of them. And native speakers learn this through practice. They memorize, so to speak, through practice. And you can do the same. It's just a matter of practicing, and you'll get familiar with the stem changes. Okay, so first things first. Remember, we kind of always start with the root. And the reason why we call this a stem changing verb is because stem is the synonymous with root. So you could also, I guess we could also call these root changing verbs, stem changing verbs. It's really the same thing. So how do we find the stem, or how do we find the root? It's very simple. You remove the ER from the infinitive. This is the infinitive to understand. So when I remove the infinitive, I have the root or the stem. It's the same thing right here. Now the E will change in some cases to IE. So you'll see two forms of the stem or the root, two forms of the stem. This is why we call them stem changing, because sometimes the stem changes from the E to the IE. Okay, so now it's a matter of learning the forms. Okay, so let's look at the different forms. Yo, if your subject is yo, I. If you want to say I understand in Spanish, it's yo entiendo. 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 And notice that the yo form does have the stem change. Yo entiendo. Yo entiendo. For the subject tú, entiendes. Tú entiendes. Tú entiendes. Notice that I also have for the informal you vos. This is used in South America, particularly in Argentina, but also some other places. And the vos can actually have its own form. So the vos form, if you go to Argentina, entendes, entendes. Notice that the stress is on the end, entendes. And this one does not have the stem change. So we have tú entiendes or vos entendés. So now the usted, el, ella form, these three subjects share the same form, and the form is entiende, entiende, also with the stem change, entiende. So we would say, usted entiende, you understand. Él entiende, he understands. Ella entiende, she understands. For nosotros or the nosotras, it's not listed here, but nosotros or nosotras, the form is entendemos, entendemos, entendemos. And notice there is no stem change here. Entendemos. And notice the difference in pronunciation. This is e and this is ye. Entiende, entendemos, entendemos. Vosotros or vosotras in Spain, the plural informal you. Entendéis, entendéis, entendéis. No stem change, and notice that the stress is on the last syllable here. Entendéis, entendéis. Ustedes, ellos, and ellas share the same form. Entienden, entienden. Ustedes entienden, you understand. Ellos entienden, they understand. Ellas entienden, they understand. Okay, so here we have all of our forms of the stem changing verb entender. Notice that the stem change happens in the yo, tú, usted, el, ella, and ustedes, ellos, and ellas forms. Nosotros and vosotros do not have the stem change, as well as the vos, the Argentinian, entendés. Okay, so there are all our forms. Now, the next part is to put it into practice. So we want to think in complete thoughts like we do in everyday life. So let's just randomly select some words here that will complete the thought. Okay, so over here on the left, I have my forms of the verb. And over here on the right, I just have some things that we understand, so to speak. So for example, la lección, the lesson. So when somebody's teaching you something, you could say something like, I understand the lesson. The general idea, la idea general, and then finally, el concepto, the concept. So if you want to say in Spanish, I understand the lesson, you would say, entiendo la lección. Entiendo la lección. I understand the general idea. Entiendo la idea general. I understand the concept. Entiendo el concepto. Entiendo el concepto. You understand. Tú entiendes. Tú entiendes la lección. You understand the lesson. Tú entiendes la idea general. You understand the general idea. Tú entiendes el concepto. You understand the concept. Or, if you're using vos, entendes la lección. You understand the lesson. Entendes la idea general. You understand the general idea. Entendes el concepto. You understand the concept. Entiende. Okay, this can mean you understand, he understands, or she understands. We'll just randomly pick the he. He understands. Él entiende. He understands the lesson. Él entiende la lección. He understands the general idea. Él entiende la idea general. He understands the concept. Él entiende el concepto. We understand. Nosotros entendemos. Entendemos. We understand. Entendemos la lección. We understand the lesson. We understand the general idea. Entendemos la idea general. We understand the concept. Entendemos el concepto. Entendéis. Remember, vosotros or vosotras. You plural. You're addressing a group of people that you know well. So if you wanted to say you understand the lesson, you would say entendéis la lección. Entendéis la lección. You understand the general idea. Entendéis la idea general. You understand the concept. Entendéis el concepto. Entienden. Remember, this can stand for you understand, ustedes entienden, they understand, ellos entienden, or ellas entienden. So I'm going to just randomly choose ellas entienden, they understand. Ellas entienden la lección, they understand the lesson. Ellas entienden la idea general, they understand the general idea. And ellas entienden el concepto. Okay, good practice. So my suggestion is, if you want to just kind of help increase your fluency, your pronunciation, pause the video on this chart or watch it. You can watch this part of the lesson a few times, or you can also pause it and just look at the information here and practice going through the different combinations of things that you can say. Practice. The more you force yourself to speak and pronounce, the more fluid you will become, the more flowing your language will be. So remember, language is a skill. It's absolutely a skill. The only way to get better is through practice. So it's like if you're training for a sport, you got to train, you got to practice. If you're training to play a musical instrument, you have to train, practice. If you're going to act, you have to rehearse. If you're going to learn how to fly a plane, you have to practice going through the maneuvers. So it's just practice. The more you do it, the better. Okay, here's a little bit of practice. We won't say everything here, but I'll just make a few questions. So remember, you can also ask questions by just simply adjusting your intonation. Usually the verb will come first and then the subject pronoun afterward. If you say the subject pronoun, we don't always say it in Spanish. So let's look at some examples here. How would you ask someone, do you understand the lesson, using tú? That question would be, ¿entiendes la lección? ¿Entiendes la lección? Do you understand the lesson? Notice a little bit of rise in my intonation towards the end. ¿Entiendes la lección? Do you understand the lesson? Or maybe in Argentina, ¿entiendes la lección? ¿Entiendes la lección? How about, does he understand? Entiende, I would include the él here. because their entiende represents more than one subject pronoun. So, ¿entiende él la lección? Does he understand the lesson? Does he understand the general idea? ¿Entiende él la idea general? Does he understand the concept? ¿Entiende él el concepto? Okay. One more example here. ¿Entienden? Let's go with ustedes. You. So, for example, as an instructor in the class in front of all the students, I would use entienden. Ustedes. Do you understand? So I would be asking the class, I would say, ¿Entienden ustedes la lección? Do you understand the lesson? Or do you understand the general idea? ¿Entienden ustedes la idea general? Or do you understand the concept? ¿Entienden ustedes el concepto? And there you have it. Again, my suggestion would be you can pause the video here and just practice making a few questions with the information that's here, just for your fluency, for your pronunciation. Okay, well, that's it for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, I would appreciate it very much if you'd give it a like. If you know of someone that's learning Spanish and you think these lessons might help them, feel free to share and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. To continue on to another lesson, click on the video that appears here on your screen. And just as a reminder, if you haven't noticed this, the number in the title of all my videos is the number of the lesson. So if you wanted to take this course from the very beginning, just start with number 1 and keep going down the list. Again, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Nos vemos pronto.